Hey everybody, how you doing? Thanks for watching the video. So we have a hijacker that lives in our brain, and not only does it live in our brain, it's actually part of our brain. It's called the amygdala. You can see it on the screen now in the diagram. It's a very small part of the brain, but it's a very crucial part of the brain that is concerned with processing memories and emotions, but it's also responsible for the fight or flight mechanism that kicks in whenever we face a danger or a threat, whether that's real or whether that's perceived. And you've probably heard of this. So something happens and you get ready to either fight it or you get ready to run away from it. That's fight or flight. The other part of the brain that's important in understanding what I'm talking about in this video is the prefrontal cortex or prefrontal lobes. And normally the prefrontal cortex is responsible for rational thinking and rational decision making. So the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex kind of work together. So we perceive a threat, the amygdala goes danger, and then the prefrontal cortex goes, right, okay, what is the actual level of danger? How serious is it? And what do we need to do about it? So normally they kind of work quite well together, and we don't overreact to, small threats. We just react to the big ones. Now, there are times when the amygdala takes over, and that's quite appropriate. So for example, you step into the road, you haven't seen the car coming, and you get out of the way straight away. That's the flight response kicking in. Okay, if you step into the road, you don't stand there for seconds or minutes whilst your amygdala and your brain or your prefrontal cortex work out what to do, what's the appropriate course of action. You just do it. However, there are other times when the amygdala takes over and it's inappropriate, and this is what we call an amygdala hijack, because the amygdala hijacks our thinking processes, it hijacks our emotions. It also hijacks our physiology, so it gets us ready to fight or flight when we don't necessarily need to do either of those things. And this is a real problem, particularly for people who are suffering with chronic stress and chronic anxiety, because their amygdala it's like it's switched on all of the time. It's constantly looking for threats, it's constantly looking for danger that isn't really there. And so the slightest provocation sends us into fight or flight mode when we don't really need to go there. And at those occasions, or on those occasions, the kind of prefrontal cortex gets basically shut down. So we lose our ability to think and to act rationally. So for people who are suffering with chronic stress and chronic anxiety, the slightest thing can cause them to have an amygdala hijack, and they basically act in a way that is irrational. It's inappropriate to the level of threat that's present. And there are some classic examples of amygdala hijacks that you will have seen in other people, or you may have even experienced yourselves. One of those is road rage. You're driving down the road, you're quite happy, somebody cuts you up, and the next thing you know, you've lost it. You are beeping the horn, you're screaming at them, you're shouting at them. You might even drive down the road chasing them, and you're causing danger then to other people, which is obviously completely irresponsible, but you're not thinking about that because your amygdala has hijacked your thought processes. Another example is one from sport. So you may have seen tennis players who play a bad shot and they smash their racket into the ground, and they keep smashing it until the racket is totally bent out of shape and can't be used anymore. One of my favorites is golfers, because I play golf. You might have seen professional golfers on TV or in video clips on TikTok or YouTube or whatever, who play a bad shot and then they snap the club over their knee because they're so angry, so frustrated. If they stop to think about it, they'd realize that's not a good thing to do, because now they've got to get a new set of clubs, or at least a new club to replace the one that they've broken. That's an amygdala hijack. Probably one that we're all familiar with, though, because we'll have seen this and possibly experienced it, is the emotional outburst. So somebody says something to you, might be a colleague, a loved one, a friend, when you're out in the pub or in a restaurant or whatever. And what they say is really innocent, it's innocuous, it might be a joke, it might be a bit of banter, but you completely lose it. You get angry, you get upset, you have an emotional outburst, maybe you insult them back, or you just storm off out of the room or the setting, wherever you are, when this happens. These are all examples of amygdala hijacks taking place. And of course, once that happens, particularly the emotional outburst, it's never a good place to be, because afterwards we feel guilty, we feel embarrassed, we feel shame, we feel a lot of things that aren't going to help if we're already feeling stressed and feeling anxious. So that's basically what an amygdala hijack is. We have a hijacker. He lives in our brain, or it lives in our brain, It's very real. Knowing what it is one thing. Knowing how to handle it is something different, and that's what I'll be covering in a series of videos that come in after this. So be aware of your amygdala hijack, the hijacker that lives in your head, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.